Hey guys, what's up? I just came back from locals today. Today being, I think it was Tuesday. So I decided to try out a brand new shop I've never been to. I believe it's called Sparrow and Flinch, or Flinch and Sparrow Games. Located in Long Beach, California. If you don't know where that is. Anyways, apparently they are a WPN, so they're a premium wizard store. One of the few in my areas actually. I think there's about like six WPNs in my area or so. That's within at least a 25-mile radius. And yeah, I mean they mainly focus on Magic, and they have some pretty good players and stuff like that. So yeah, I decided to try out this new shop. Never been there. I live kind of close, ish, but I just never knew they existed. How I found them was through the Wizard Companion app. That app is actually not bad. Like it lists a lot of like locals and stuff in my area. I think like basically all the ones I usually go to. Um, but yeah, first time gone there. Just wanted to see how I would do at a brand new local without knowing how what deck anyone plays. Because the typical local I usually go to, I know most people there, I guess, because I play there for a while now. And so it's still good practice because sometimes they bring different decks and stuff like that. But people always know what I'm playing because I always play the same deck for the past like year, so and just making small alliterations to my deck. So a lot of people know I play blue white control, or Esper control, you can say. And honestly, they still um don't perform as well against me, not only because I guess maybe they don't get enough practice against control decks, or they don't really side too well, or have a side for my particular deck. Namely because blue white is not that popular and it hasn't been that strong. Um, Now, if I played online, I would have more data on that. But at least in person, blue white is just not very played very often. But yeah, so I went to this new place. The entry is a little expensive, I'll say that, but they allowed you to use credit to enter. Me having no credit there, so this is my first time. So I paid the entry price and played. And they limit the rounds to 3 rounds, and then they just pay out. So it's not like normal Swiss, where you go until there's like no or only one undefeated left. So they just went 3 rounds and cut it off. And if you went 2-1, you got your money back plus a little extra. And if you went undefeated, you got like full value. And so yeah, I went undefeated, which was nice. And yeah, maybe I'll start going there more often. Mainly because I have some credit there now, and I can kind of, if I do well every week, I can just loop that indefinitely and just gain like a ton of credit by using my winnings to pay for next entry, and then just keep winning, rather than having to pay out of pocket every single time. So yeah, so that is an option in the future, and they play on Tuesdays and Fridays. So basically, I think I found a place to play Magic every single day of the week if I wanted to. I wouldn't play Magic every single day of the week. I don't think I can mentally do that. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Neat little shop. A lot of chairs and tables and really open space. Pretty clean. Yeah, just cool. Located in sort of an industrial area, which I guess that's a lot of card shops. They're in like some sort of industrial plaza, probably because the rent is cheaper and parking's more spacious, rather than a regular shopping center, which your parking is more limited, and rent is probably more expensive. So anyways, I think I talked a lot enough about the shop. Let's talk about how I did, and go from there. So yeah, 3 rounds. I played against, I believe it's a Hammertime deck. In my first round, I only say I believe it's Hammertime because I never did see Hammer, but it played all the Hammer cards. I just didn't really see Hammer come down, so I wasn't too sure if I was playing against Hammer, but I would say like 80% of the deck is Hammer Time. So I played against Hammer Time round one. Round two, I played against Green Tron, and round three, I played against I believe it was 4-color Omnath with Kahira. So against Hammertime, I went 2-0. Tron I went 2-1, and Omnath I went 2-1. So yeah, so those are my results for today, or at least this particular event. Let's talk about cards I sided in, or I guess let's talk about some changes I made to the deck. So the deck has basically been the same. If you see my other deck profile, it's not much has really changed. My only change now that I'm trying out is I cut down the Wandering Emperor down to one, and I am playing uh, 3 Solitudes, I believe. Yes, I'm playing 3 Solitudes. I do have a fourth Solitude, but I don't think I would want to play fourth Solitude without playing Kahira. But I like my Snapcasters too much to, officially play Kahira and play 4 Solitudes. So yeah, just matchups today. I never invoked the Solitude, which is nice. I always just hard casted Solitude and it was fine. It honestly, like, if you can just play the first couple of turns and just save the Solitude in hand, you will be eventually be able to cast it. There's almost no time where I just thought I was threatened to I had to cast Solitude to invoke it and exile a card in my hand. Um, I have Prismatic Ending plus counter spells plus Late Night Biting. That's enough early removal that you can just save Solitude in hand and eventually just use them as win cons. And that's basically what I did the entire time today. Just never invoked them. Just saved them in my hand and played them when I need to. And yeah, they were great in terms of just being a body on the board. Kept me in the game, especially against Hammer Time. I was really low, but they like just being able to smack every turn with this and just getting the life gain was great. And yeah, they proved to be pretty decent. And I would say at least this particular build, 3 to 2 copies is great. I wouldn't go more than four, or sorry, I wouldn't go up to four unless you're playing Kahira. Because then at that point, I think you'll be drawing a lot of them early games, and you kind of don't want to draw them too early, um, unless you're against like Murktide and you really need to kill a Ragavan. But honestly, you can take a Ragavan hit or two and you'll be fine. Like yeah, Ragavan will ramp and stuff, but it's not gonna kill you. Unless you get Ragavan and then you get Blood Moon or something. But that should be an easy read for the most part. Anyways, uh, 3 Solitude did pretty well. 1 Emperor. The times I did cast her like twice today, and yeah, she's still pretty good. Like I was able to win, push for damage or like just go crazy with her when I did cast her. So I still like her. I just don't know if I want to put 2 back in the deck yet. And the reason why I put the Solitudes in was I was facing a lot more Abominable Creativity decks and stuff like that, where I would much prefer to uh, exile their Titan or their Archon of Cruelty if they did somehow cheat it out, rather than wait for them to attack and then play the Emperor. So that's the only main weakness of the Emperor, is that she is not great as removal. She's great at going wide and just putting presence on the board and buffing your creatures for combat tricks. But if you're using her as removal, she's a little weak on that. And that's what I kind of wanted to avoid having to deal with creatures that had attack triggers, and have them attack first and then cast the Emperor, because I ran into that a few times and that didn't feel too good. So that's why we're going for the Solitudes now. Okay, cool. Getting that out of the way. I also made a small change to my side deck. I'm trying it out. Put it in a few times today, but didn't really see it or just didn't have the opportunity to really use it. But I am trying out Dress Down now. So what I ended up taking out was I took out it's not the Teferi in here. I took out the temporary imprisonment card, or temporary lockdown. Mainly because I just couldn't figure out when to really cast that card sometimes, or just never really had the opportunity to cast it, or just never saw it at 1 copy, so it didn't really do much for me. That, and I noticed a small change in the meta where a lot of people are now they have a lot of enchantment hate, especially with Brothers War and stuff like that. There's just a lot more enchantment hate running around, and so temporary lockdown, even in the mono white deck, they can easily just kind of kill the enchantment. So I kind of wanted to avoid that. Especially people are trying to play around leyline binding because they're anticipating that a lot of decks are playing leyline binding, so they're playing more removal for leyline binding, and thus the temporary lockdown kind of gets hit by that. So we're playing dress down instead, trying out two dress downs. I also took out one Aether Gust, mainly because I just want to try out two dress down. I still like Aether Gust. Honestly, it's still really a great card. Always been a great card for me. But yeah, I wanted to try out two dress down just to see how it would do. The rest of the side's basically the same. The other debatable card about maybe taking out would maybe be the fourth Teferi. But I still like Teferi. Like, it came up a lot today too against Tron and even Omnath. It was great, and even I believe Hammertime too. It's just like when you play this card, it does change the game a bit, even though he is not in the greatest state right now. He's kind of weak, but just having a fourth copy seems to sometimes be pretty good. So yeah, two dress downs. I drew him against Omnath, but at the point where I did draw it against Omnath, it didn't matter anymore because I was just way ahead. And so I never casted it. I didn't even bother cycling the card. Just kept it in my hand just in case he did cast something. But yeah, Dress Down is a new card I'm trying to add. Hopefully it also deals with other elementals, and it should hopefully deal with maybe even Scam. Because Scam's been winning a lot lately in my area in terms of the RCQs, especially Collector Legions. They had two recent RCQs, and they both times I think Scam won. I haven't got a chance to play in the RCQ yet. I think I might do one towards the end of this month, just to see how I would do. But yeah, Scam, yeah, quite interesting. This might work against Scam. I'm not too sure in the interaction with this and Invoked yet, on how to kind of stack it and stuff to force them to sack their creatures and stuff like that. So we'll figure that out in a second. But yeah, trying out two dress downs, namely to hit creativity and I guess Titans also. You can also hit Cultivator Giant if they cast Cultivator Giant under Cavern of Souls. But my Titan matchup's been pretty good. Like I've always beaten all my Titan matchups. No issues there. Okay, so yeah, game one, I played against Hammertime. I guess it was not really a Hammertime deck because I did see like Solitudes and I see a couple Blink cards. So it was like mostly a Hammertime deck list without maybe the Hammertime itself, and they threw in Solitudes and a couple of like Ephemerate cards to kind of ephemerate like the like the equipments, I guess. Like I think he ephemerated the completed Cauldra and a couple other cards, but he did have like Mother of Runes, Stoneforge Mystic, what's the other ones? Esper Sentinel, all the usual suspect for a Hammertime deck, but with the blink capabilities, which is kind of interesting. Game one, he had me on the ropes for a little bit because I think he goes first. He goes, yeah, he goes first. Turn two, he gets turn one he goes Mother, or not Mother, sorry, Giver Runes. Turn two he goes the whatchamacallit, Stoneforge Mystic. Turn three he goes Cauldron Complete. So I'm still behind on land. I'm still trying to deal with, like, with whatever he has on board. So he gets those 3 out. So I've been trying to build up my land, slowly getting there. Yeah, he swings in. I'm not like twice with the Cauldron Complete. So I had 2 Archmage Charms. I decided to Archmage Charms the Giver to take it. My first time when I reached 3 lands, I just immediately Archmage Charms the Giver. Turn after that, he just swings in. I think he believes taps out. Then I finally had another Archmage Charm to finally take um, the Cauldra Germ. And once I took control of the Germ, it kind of swung in my favor, even though I was really low on health. I think I was at like 6 health left, just from cracking, shocking, and just trying to battle, stabilizing. And once I was able to stabilize, it was all kind of good for me. I guess he was a little surprised that I took his um, giver, but that ended up working really well in my favor because I think he tried to solitude the Cauldra, but he forgot I had the giver on the board, so I just used giver to give the Cauldra Germ protection from white, and that kind of just swung in my favor right there, really really quickly. And then I think eventually he had to kill the giver. I think he ends up solituding the giver and like trying to do some tricks with it. Regardless, he eventually does cast a or cycle a card that basically um, blinks the equipment, and then once he blinks the equipment, the germ dies because the germ's a 0/0. So he blinks the equipment. Equipment blinks back. He gets the Cauldra again on his onto his board. But at that point, I don't think it mattered because I think I had like Solitudes in hand, and I had a ton of mana, and then I had Teferi, the big Teferi on the board. So at that point, it didn't matter in the game anymore, and I kind of just ran away. and was eventually able to ult with the Teferi. So our game one took maybe 20 minutes. It just took a while. I just had to stabilize. That was the main thing. Once I stabilized, the game was just kind of downhill for him. Game two, I decided in I think chalices, and I'm not sure if I took in. I think I did this, and maybe just downs. I think that's it, perhaps, and maybe some Kaya's Guile. So the idea here is to obviously chalice in one. They had a bunch of 1 mana drops. Dress down to take care of the Urza Saga tokens, which game one was a bit of a pain in the ass, but I eventually kill all the Urza Saga tokens, which was fine. I think I just used Solitude multiple times. I never saw the Teferi, 3 mana Teferi against the Saga tokens. I wish I did. But anyways, yeah, I was able to chalice and then Teferi, and then just like started looping my resources, and then I started snapcastering my stuff in my graveyard. So it was going really well. Like he had a very similar opening. He gets the Mystic Forge, Stoneforge Mystic, Cauldra again. But I had another Archmage Charm, so I stole the Cauldra and then just kind of sat on that thing to protect myself. And then, yeah, as the game went on, from what I remember, I just gained a ton of resources and we're just removing stuff on his board left and right with prismatic endings and leyline bindings and all the jazz. So I've had pretty good control of the game there. I think in general, my particular deck is pretty good against Hammertime or decks like Hammertime, but it does struggle against like straight affinity decks, because affinity, they just go so wide so quickly that I just can't really keep up with that. Where Hammer Time, while they're strong, they go tall rather than wide, which going tall makes is easier for me to deal with rather than going wide. So yeah, Hammer Time, not too bad of a matchup. Just affinity is a pain in the ass. Anyways, so yeah, that was round one. I think for my decks or cards I sided out, I took out the Opt and I think a Snapcaster and maybe a Planeswalker or something. I think I took a big mana for Fairy and small Baby Jace, or not Baby Jace, Jace, just because I think that might have been too slow against him, or I might not have an opportunity to resolve him. And I was putting in. I guess I was banking on my Solitude just winning me the game at that point, and just not letting him play the game by just removing his stuff. So I think those are the cards I took out for the sideboard. Or round two, played against Tron, Green Tron. Game one was kind of rough. game one, I think he gets Nat Tron, and even though I went first, he ended up getting Nat Tron, and I just didn't have the cards to kind of deal with Karn. Karn the Liberated came in, and I eventually got to ferry out, bounce the or remove the Karn, um, but I think he started playing like Old Stone and stuff like that, and I think he played um, the giant Massacre Worm. Sorry, not Massacre Worm. What's the Death Touch Worm? The 6/6 with that breaks into the two smaller baby worms. Uh, yeah, I just couldn't really deal with him because I think I had like dam and stuff like that, and that wasn't cutting it. Like when I damned the board, the token split because he also had like a small Mem Knight thingy. So he kind of just took away game one. I didn't have any way to combat it. Game two and three though was really went really well for me. Um, I ended up putting in, I believe, just the fairies and something like this, just like 5 cards maybe. But that was just enough for me to essentially just run away with it. I think I might have done like a dress down or so. Um, but yeah, game two, I went first. He didn't have too much. Like I don't think he got Nat Tron immediately. But he was going for expo maps and the stars and stuff like that. Um, he didn't draw any of his planeswalkers it seemed, but he did play a bunch of uh, O stones on me. I think he had 2 O stones on the board eventually, and he was trying to put like tokens on them so that they wouldn't get blown up by themselves. Um, but I had 2 leyline bindings, I guess, and I was just kind of waiting for him to waste his mana doing that, or just using up his mana in general. So that way I can just leyline binding both the old stones safely, which I end up doing. And I think he tries to cast like a big Karn or a baby Karn. I salty, hard casted salty on top of that, and it kind of just went downhill. He gets out another O stone, but I think I just prismatic ending it for 3, and then he had Karn, baby Karn out. But then it was at 6. I think he upticks it rather than downticks the Karn. So I think I go Warning Emperor, make a token, and then buff up the token or something like that, and then just smack the Karn, killed him, got rid of him off the board. And yeah, game two just went in my favor. Game three, definitely one of those games where I just had to think a little bit more. So I think he goes first. He plays this thing, um, and then I think he plays the little star thing. I go crack my land and prismatic end the little star, or either a star or the expo map. Turn two, he plays a star and passes or something like that. My turn, I go and I have 2 lands and Dolan's Veto. He cracks and tries to play either the Sylvan Library, no, not Sylvan Library, Silver, the 2 mana green card that searches your deck for a land, and I just had a debate on countering it or not because I think I see like at least a tower and a forest in play, so I think he's kind of stuck on land, so I just decided to YOLO it and then just counter that with Dolan's Veto, and I also had 2 Archmage Charms, or at least 1 Archmage Charm in hand. My turn, I play a land, 3 lands, I pass. He plays, I think another one of those cards to try to search his deck for a land, and or he plays like another tower or something, and then he tries to search his deck for a land, and I have Archmage Charm up, so I counter that also. He passes back to me, I put my land down, I pass. He tries to do the same thing, and I just countered. I just kept trying to not let him establish Tron at all, which really in the end won me the game. Like I could have just let him get his land, play his land normally, and then play out the game and just use Archmage Charms to draw. But I had a sense that he was struggling on lands after the first couple land drops, and then I went full ham and just countered every card that was trying to search for a land. So like the 2 mana one, the 1 mana green sorcery that does it too. I think the Sterling, something Sterling. I don't remember the name of the card, but yeah, I just basically went full ham on just countering all of that, and then eventually I was able to kind of establish my board. Big Teferi, I had Salty, try to cast Karn, I Salty it. In the turn after that, I think I Teferi'd. I had a lot of mana at this point. I think I was just building my mana base. I didn't have too much cards in hand. He had a lot of cards in hand, but his mana was just kind of not there. So I was building my mana base. Eventually, I had like 7 mana where I Teferi'd, attacked with the Salty, bounced the Salty back to my hand, drew a card, and then that's where he kind of like that's where you knew the game kind of ended there, just because I was able to keep looping the Salty while he was not really able to establish any threats on the board. Couldn't establish his mana until like turn 8 or so, like that, turn 7 or 8, where he finally had Tron. But at that point, it didn't matter. Like I had total board control, while he didn't really have too many permanents on the board. So yeah, game 3 was pretty rough for him. And basically, I just saw that he was struggling on lands and just went ham on disrupting his land drops. And then yeah, game round 3, I played against Kahira Omnath. First, I thought I was playing a mirror match, because it was Kahira. So the game goes. I think I win game 1 pretty easily. Game 1, I think he tries to hardcast Teferi several times on 3 mana. I countered Teferi twice. I think I counter spells and stuff like that. So he was tapping out trying to play Teferi, which ends up going in my favor because I just had a bunch of like mana, or I had a bunch of like cards and counters. So yeah, game 1 kind of just goes to me because he eventually does get like an Omnath, but I had so much stuff in my graveyard for Snapcaster, and I had like Solitudes and stuff like that. Um, Basically, I just kind of run away with the game. Game 2, what did I cite? I know for sure I put something like this in. I put that in, and then maybe I think that was it. So this was my side against Omnath. So idea is they play a lot of like threats. The only card that this doesn't answer is, I guess, Teferi, and it doesn't answer Solitude. But other than that, it hits Omnath, hits the Kahira, I guess, if you wanted to, hits Fury, hits Risen Reef, basically all that stuff. And I know they're probably playing Cavern of Souls, so that was good. This also hits everything in their all their threats, so Salty is also really really good. Just down the obviously just down to hit uh, the elementals, in case I wanted to save something. I did draw it later, but it didn't matter. And then Teferi, just in case we wanted to play like a counterspell war or something like that, Teferi would have been helpful. So he goes first. Yeah, he sets out a Risen Reef. I didn't have too much in my hand. He goes Risen Reef and then gets the trigger off the Risen Reef. So I think he had like 3 or 4 mana by the time I got to my turn 2, I guess. Because I have a Tri-land, I fetch Shock into Steam Vents, so I have a Tri-land Steam Vents, so I can Leyline Binding um, the Risen Reef, but then he goes Ephemerate, and that just kind of I knew at that point I screwed up. Totally forgot the deck even plays Ephemerate. So he Ephemerates the Risen Reef, dodges the Leyline Binding, and then I think he just goes ham from there. Like he gets like a couple of triggers off of the Risen Reef. I'm still at 3 mana to his like 7 at this point, Um, and yeah, he just goes to ham, and I strictly or quickly lost game 2 just because of that one, ephemerating his Risen Reef and just being able to get like 3 or 4 lands off of Risen Reef and being able to cast like Omnath, and then adding Kahira and playing Kahira. He just got so much value. I just couldn't outplay that. If I got rid of the Risen Reef and he didn't have Ephemerate, I probably would have been fine. Unfortunately, he just ran away with the game like that. Game 3 was really good in my favor. I think I played pretty well. He had the mulligan down to 5. I mulled 6. I think that was the first mulligan I took today. But yeah, so I kept a lot of hands where I had 5 lands in hand, which generally you shouldn't do. You definitely shouldn't do that. But I was like, fuck it. Like I'm probably gonna draw something, right? And for the most part, I did. Like against Hammertime and against Tron, and I'm just drawing a lot of like good stuff and playing my lands every turn. So it worked out okay for me. But yeah, so those 5 land hands are just like really risky, or 1 land hands are really risky. You could probably keep 2 land hands, but yeah, like 5 land hands. If you draw more lands, you're just screwed. But I think I had an Archmage Charm or an Opt, so I was just like, okay, I'm fine. Which is why I like having Ops in my decks. Is I can keep really greedy hands and generally just do fine with them because I'll eventually find my answers or just dig through my deck enough times while also fetching. So I'm like thinning my deck out. So I'll just, in theory, should only be drawing my answers and threats. So that worked out pretty well for me. So jumping back to the game, game three, I just had like subtleties, solitudes to answer his like subtleties and or his theories and stuff like that. At one point, he pitches solitude, gets rid of my snapcaster, and then goes ephemerate. I decided to counter the ephemerate, and he loses I guess 3 cards, and uh, that was kind of sealed the deal for me. Um, in terms of like now I have enough lethal force on the board to kind of kill him. I was at 14, he was at 10, but I was able to flash into Solitude after that, kill his Kahira, and then smack him once with that, and then he tries to Omnath, I flash into Subtlety, put the Omnath on the top of the board. So now he's at 10 again, and then I had I think a Celestial Colonnade, so I had exact lethal, or if not more than lethal. I also had I think a Storm Hall of the Storm Giant, which was pretty good also. So either way, I had enough damage to kill him with both the Subtlety, the Solitude, and the Celestial Colonnade there. So in game three, I had more elementals on the board than he did. Kind of funny in that sense, but yeah, it worked out pretty well for me. Late mining was pretty good. Used it quite a bit. It's just that one time I punted it. With the where he ephemerated the Risen Reef, I was like, oh crap, now I'm just dead. But yeah, otherwise it did a lot of work. Got rid of a bunch of like stuff. My opponent could have O-Stone to try to get rid of this, but I was playing around the fact that he had 2 O-Stones on the board, trying to force him to use his mana up, and I was eventually just able to steal 2 O-Stones with a Leyline Binding. He had a 3rd O-Stone, but not enough mana, and I just got rid of that also. So yeah, pretty good there. Snapcaster did pretty well. Snapcaster countered me some stuff, drew me some cards. Still like the Snapcaster. And yeah, that's about it. Never casted Jace today. Casted Solitude multiple times. Solitude was pretty good. Archmage has always been pretty solid. Teferi worked out pretty well today too. Big Teferi against Hammertime. I was able to ultimate him twice. That was pretty good. Just because I was able to sit on the Cauldron Complete, and my opponent just couldn't deal any damage to Teferi, so I was able to just ult with him. And I believe I had like a Dress Down and Archmage's Charm, so I was able to just like start annihilating his board by just drawing a bunch of cards. But yeah, that was pretty good. And yeah, that kind of concludes my tournament report for today. Might go out tomorrow again. Go to another new store. I think this one's called Cut and Shuffle. So I've been there a few times. I've been there once for Yu-Gi-Oh! And been there just mostly buy supplies, but I never actually played Magic there. So I might go there tomorrow, give it a shot, see how I do. But yeah, other than that, that's all I got for you guys. If you got any comments, any questions, or any suggestions, just leave them down below. I'll try my best to answer them. And yeah, I think that's it. Hope you guys enjoy this one, and see you guys next time.